Today I'm going to be reviewing this F30 BMW 328i, possibly one of the best BMWs you can buy. Good morning and welcome to Blitzkrieg Automotive, where today I will be telling you why this BMW 3 Series may be one of the best BMWs, period. I'm going to start off by showing you just some weird touches to this car, such as the fact that you can unlock the door by reaching into the door handle. You can lock it by touching this, not a button, contact patch on the top. You can also use the key to unlock it as you would any other car, but if you hold it down, all the windows roll down and the sunroof vents the air out of the top of the car. You have to be holding it down the entire time. You can stop it whenever you like. Unfortunately, there is no way to then roll your windows back up and close the sunroof from the outside of the car. To do that, you have to get into the car. Now, once you get in, you'll start to notice some different things with the inside. Over here on the door panel, you get the stuff you'd usually expect. Door handle, child lock for the rear windows, window controls, and mirror controls. They're all exactly how you would expect, much like any other German car. But the things start coming up when you start pushing them. Like, when the doors open, if you push the window switch down, the window goes automatic down, as you would expect. But then when you go to push it up, and it is an automatic window, it doesn't go up. Only when the door is closed will it automatically go up. The mirror controls. You have the mirror fold button, which works as any other mirror fold button does. And then the mirror switch to change which side you want to affect. But there's no middle switch. It's all one or the other. So if you hit it at any point while you're driving, it will move. And then there's the rear window lock. You hit this a lot on accident, or at least the owner of this car has told me that you end up hitting it a lot, and then while the driver can affect those windows, the people in the back cannot. Now up here you get your normal things that you'd expect. Your infotainment system, which is controlled through a remote control knob at the bottom, like all BMWs. You get these 8 presets that you can change to your favorite radio station or whatnot, but the weird thing comes when you touch one. Rub your finger across it. It shows what it's assigned to. None of these are currently assigned, as you will see. None of them have anything. But if it was, it would tell you what it's assigned to, the radio station it's assigned to, whatnot, and then you could finally press it, and it would initiate that function. Unfortunately, these nice sport displays here apparently can't be tuned to anything. As I tried to assign it to 8, it cannot be stored. Now, the other weird thing is that in this car, in the middle, you have hazards. You'd expect that. But then you have the lock button right in the middle for some reason. So if you want to lock the doors, you go to the center of the car. If you want to unlock the doors, you have to go to the center and then back out. But of course, any other luxury car currently, if you pull the door handle twice, first time it unlocks, second time it opens the door. But down here with the climate control, it's automatic climate control. It's very good. The weird thing is that, you'd expect the vent rockers there, but it has a temperature one as well that, from all I can tell, isn't even attached to anything, let alone doesn't actually do anything. I've been trying to figure that one out for a while now, and I just can't. Then we move down here to the shift area and the remote radio control. This is one of the better remote radio control systems I have used. It keeps fingerprints off the display, and it keeps all controls down to this rotation knob and the directions, as well as Navigation can be input through this touchpad on top by just writing in the letter. This is the gear knob, of course. It's a very nice gear knob. It's probably one of the better gear shifters that there is. It's nice. They have one of the best transmissions. Also down here, the traction control, sport, eco, comfort button, and the parking sensors, which, well, they'll make noise if you're close enough. And the standard handbrake. Another thing that you'll find with this car is that it has obscenely big door pockets. Now that's not necessarily a problem because the car has a lot of leg space, but what is a problem is these seats. This is a very highly optioned car, and this leather, well, it's not soft, it's actually rather stiff. And yet the bottom of the seat is flat. It doesn't hold you in as you're going around the corner like a performance car would. Now this car does have memory seats, but the owner tells me that they can't really figure out how they work. They never seem to set themselves correctly, and only occasionally when you go to get out of the car will they actually retract to make it easier to get out. Now what's good about these seats is the seat belts. They're mounted to the seat rather than to the frame, meaning that they are very easy to grab. You can actually hook them on the bolster if you want to, but because they're so easy to grab, you almost don't have to. Now back here, it's not all good, it's not all bad, it's a good mix of the two. One of the bad things is the legroom. I'm not necessarily considered tall, I'm probably somewhere around average height, and, well, I don't have that much legroom. They have these cutouts in the seats, which make your knees more comfortable, but down where your feet are, it's mostly under the seat, so you can't move them that much. You do get door pockets, which are nice. They can hold things. And you also get a really good armrest slash cup holder. The problem with cup holders, it's not that big, just like the front ones, so it can't hold that much. You also get automatic rear windows, which are great, and they go up automatically as well, as long as you have the door closed. You also have access to the trunk, complete access to the trunk actually. You can put whatever you want in the trunk back through this hole, as long as it fits. So let's move back there. Now this car has a fairly large trunk. I don't know the exact cubic footage of it, but I do know that there are 3 or 4 ways of getting into it. You can open it through the release button on the inside. You can open it from the release button on the key. If you have the key on you, you can just push the button on the bottom side of the trunk, whether the car is locked or unlocked, as well as you can run your foot quickly under the bumper. Now that method doesn't work 100% of the time. It's sometimes a bit hazy if it's raining or the humidity's bad, or it just decides, I don't want to. Now, the other way isn't necessarily opening the trunk, but it is with the trunk area. You cannot lock these keys inside of the car in any way. If the doors are open, it won't let you use the lock button on the key or on the inside of the car. If you have these keys and they're sitting on the driver's seat or in that bin, and you close the door, you can't run your hand across that contact patch on the top of the door handle, whether the car is locked or unlocked to begin with. Another thing, take the key, this is the actual key for this car, have the trunk open, take it and just toss it in. Close the trunk, it opens itself right back up so that you don't leave your key back here. The owner tells me that they have been saved by this many times. And all I can say about that is, well, how German. And here we start the driving review, right where we ended the outside review. One of the things I particularly like about this car is the gear shifter. It's one of the better ones I've used for any electronic gear shifting system. The one problem I have with it is because this is the luxury spec, it doesn't have paddles. You can feel where screws might be put in that could add paddles, but this car, they're not selected or just not available. So here we start the driving review, and right away I can tell that this is one of the best HUD systems I've ever used. It shows you only what you need to know, which is the speed. If the door's opened, it'll tell you that. You can add things and remove things from it, but for the most part, it only tells you what you need to see. You can add infotainment stuff and such, and it'll show you navigation when you need it to. But for now, let's test out the performance. This test is going to be along our standard route, which involves some speed bumps, a bit of interstate driving, as well as some cornering. And that is one of the more important parts of this test. The factory windshield wipers, I can report, are fairly good at removing stuff from the windshield. It helps if the car has been cleaned, but they work rather well. I've driven this car a few times in the past, actually, and I can say that it feels rather dull when it's in the standard mode, but the steering is very good. And that's one of the things that the M series do above this car, is the fact that you can change the steering weight. Because when you're in sport, the steering is incredibly heavy. But when you're in comfort, the throttle response and the suspension is rather null and void. And then when you're in eco, everything feels like it's been dampened with a sponge or something put in between. It's not a nice feeling, and I can't even say that it does that much in terms of power and stuff. Let me go ahead and put it into sport mode. Now, initial trials of the sport mode, it's good. It doesn't make it the crispest car, and it really doesn't like low speeds. But on the other hand, it does make the engine a tad bit louder. This car has an interesting exhaust note, but it's not loud. The engine is audible, but not incredibly intrusive. On the other hand, the road noise is atrocious. You can hear every little bump, every stick, everything. Here we get to the suspension test. Speed bumps. In sport, it's rather rough. Now, I'm going to drop it back down into comfort. Go over the second one. Ooh, the steering's much better. It's nicer, not by a ton. It could even just be a placebo effect. I don't even know if it's doing anything to the suspension. I assume it is, because it is a BMW, but I can't be sure. On the other hand, it doesn't engine brake nearly as much. It tries to conserve every little bit of power. Now, for this last one, I'm going to drop it down into Eco Pro. That does some things. Oof. There's like no engine braking whatsoever. Suspension is wallowy, and it also doesn't like low speed. Back into comfort. It just sets off. It's not an abrupt movement. It just moves. It's almost like the will of God is pushing it, rather than a twin-turbo four-cylinder going through a transmission to the rear wheels through a differential. Now this is going to bring us to the acceleration portion of the test. Not anything crazy, just to normal city speeds, about 45 miles an hour. I'm not going to bore you with numbers or anything like that. realistically in the city don't mean that much. What I am going to tell you is whether or not it's good as compared to the other cars I've driven, compared to like trucks and subcompacts. Hopefully the engine gives a little bit of sound, and hopefully this, traffic clears, like it just has. Alright, and punch it. Well, it does make a rather good noise, and it certainly accelerates quickly. I don't even have traction control off, and it certainly pulled right to 45. Now, unfortunately, this is not the best area to do automotive reviews in, as nobody can seem to drive correctly, and there's a huge amount of people who don't even have insurance. But here we go for a test of the acceleration. Once again, punch it. And traffic. Sport mode tries to keep it in gear as long as it can. It actually does a really good job of that. I just wish I could test it more, but unfortunately, yeah, see? Someone just cut me out of the merge lane. Okay, that is pretty lethargic with shifting. All in all, though, it's not bad, especially if you use the, gear shifter. Then you can select whatever gear you want, and it will shift by itself, I believe. I haven't tested that because I don't want to risk damaging anything. But the 8-speed automatic is actually a really, really good transmission for, sport driving. It's fast, it's crisp. Unfortunately, it's pretty lethargic at low speeds in sport mode. That's probably just from tuning and stuff. And now on to some braking stuff. Brakes are real good. ABS kicks in right away. And again with traffic. Gets you to the speed limit right quick. Don't even need that big of a gap to get into. Well, here's going to be some more suspension stuff. This is one of the worst intersections in this area. And it handles it pretty well. Once again, the suspension is kind of wallowy, but I think that just comes mostly from the fact this car is not exactly what one would call, light. Or, particularly stiff. Even in sport mode, it should be able to cope with some bumps at a rather comparable rate. Back into comfort, and all is calm. One thing I have noticed about this car is that for it being a, almost top-of-the-line spec, if not the top-of-the-line spec, it has some blank buttons, like over here by the lights. There's some fake buttons, and on the steering wheel there's some trim pieces that appear to have been used to try and hide the fact that, there aren't any buttons there right next to the cruise control. I could be wrong, but I think that this car might have some unselected options. Like, it doesn't have ventilated seats. It does have seat heaters, but, again, like the climate control, it's fairly lethargic to work. Another thing is that these seats, they grip you enough to hold you in place, which is good, but they don't hold you in place that well. But the bolsters are so big that air doesn't get to your back, so it gets really hot. Now, if you've ever used certain modern cars with their electronic paddles for things such as wipers, things like that, you know, they return to center. And that can be really weird for someone who's never driven a higher end car like this. It's bizarre. Even other BMW products like Minis have corners. Oof. It does not like that. The traction control tries its hardest to keep you from losing it. It does a really good job. Unfortunately, that means it cuts power. This concludes the review of the 2015 F30 BMW 328i, possibly one of the best and most useful BMWs, if not cars, period. Thank you all for stopping in. Hope you liked and enjoyed the video. Please subscribe, give us a like if you enjoyed it.